Cecil Hurt. We've been covering the Crimson Tide since 1982. Good morning, Cecil. How are you, buddy?
Morning.
Hey, Barry. How are you?
I'm good.
Hey, how you doing, Cecil?
Hey, Coach.
Go ahead, Dad.
Did Coach Bryant roll over in his grave when he saw that contractor Nick Saban? The only thing I've said about it is that it's a guy who doing a good job, making a lot of money. That's all I can say.
It's what the market would bear, and there was probably somebody back when Coach Bryant left Texas A&M and came to Tuscaloosa and talked about how the world was going to come to an end because he's making $25,000 a year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was unbelievable. You know, all those staffs he had and all those. I looked at all the people that he had become head coaches, and he had a lot of them, and none of them made any money. It was unbelievable.
Cecil, does Nick Saban get with his staff and say, all right, where's an area where we're lacking in recruiting? What do we need to do? And I think you wrote an article about part of that contract coming out when it did was because of recruiting. But, you know, people say they don't have any fun, so they show them on the lake having fun. People say he's standoffish. They show him in Bama cuts. Now they're all over social media. Is that what they're doing here? Do they look at this stuff and say, all right, what do we need to do? People talk about my age in recruiting, so let's tell them I'm going to be here till 2025. They're always ahead of the curve there. Is that the messages that he's sending out to the recruits across the country with all this different stuff?
It is. You know, it's that time of year. I mean, there are other things to it that, you know, obviously you don't extend a contract or sign a contract just based on recruiting, but the way you announce it, the way you market it, you know, that's important. And so he's got recruits on campus this weekend. Georgia has recruits, Florida State and Clemson and so forth. And so somehow he manages to be on TV on ESPN earlier in the week, and then again on Friday. They say, oh, well, he just signed a contract through 2025. So when that, you know, as I said, you know, nobody ever negatively recruits, but if somebody accidentally mentions it, you know, he might not be there for 4 years, then the recruit's going to say, well, I just saw on ESPN that he signed a 8-year extension. So they do those things for a reason.
Yeah, sure.
Cecil, we're
nobody ever negatively recruits.
No, never.
I never did. We're going through an era, I guess, of tax problems, of trying to balance the non-conference games on neutral fields versus good non-conference games at home. So they bring in Texas and Notre Dame, still have Southern Cal and Dallas. I'm going to have Greg on next week. Talk to our listeners about what's happening here, what you think might happen in the future.
Well, it's an interesting time. You know, for one thing, you don't generate the largest part of your revenue from fans in the seats. It's certainly a big part of your budget, and it's part of your donation program. But you know, you get so much money from television now that the economics of that have changed. But what that creates also is a generation of fans that they want to watch a game on television and sit at home and not come out to the stadium.
Yeah. I just I made the comment while you were off that one of the LSU guys agreed with Nick Saban, and Gus Malzahn agreed with Nick Saban. And my point in making that is that they're saying to themselves, we're better off having a Missouri in there or somebody in there to play rather than a non-conference game. That's what the AD is thinking now, a little bit more than he did 5 years ago.
Right. Then part of it, it used to be, it was so important, again, from a revenue standpoint, that you made a bowl game. And it's not. It's certainly still important. But again, that's not the way your budget gets made anymore. It used to be you get people in seats and you make sure that you get your 7 wins or whatever, and you go to the bowl game and you get your bowl game money, and that's how you made your budget. Well, now you're getting paid for TV anyway. You still want to have a winning season. Everybody does, but it's not. You've just got to have six wins to get to a bowl. Most teams are going to be able to do that if they've got 2 non-conference games. So it all factors into it. You can afford to schedule a little bit tougher, and because you still make a bowl game. And if you don't, if it turns out that you don't, in the SEC you're going to share that revenue anyway. So it doesn't cost your budget so much. People don't understand. Coach Sanderson does. 50 years ago, it was hard to make a bowl game. There weren't but about 7, and it was tough to make one, and that was big money if you were able to get to one. So again, that's why scheduling changes a little bit. And the TV partners, obviously, whether it's ESPN or ABC or CBS or whoever it would be, the more big games, the better they like it.
Cecil, I know you know Wes Rucker, and he put out a tweet I thought was pretty interesting, and it was pretty self-explanatory. He said college teams are going to have to beat Alabama and Georgia at developing players because they sure as hell not going to beat them in recruiting right now. With what Georgia's doing, Alabama's number 1, Georgia's 2. Now Texas A&M is 3 right now in the rankings, and I think the rankings do matter. Is Alabama and Georgia about to separate themselves from these other schools? Maybe Texas A&M can inch up some. It doesn't look like Florida to me is opening up the checkbook like maybe these other schools are. Is there about to only be a 2-team race in each division here for a while?
Well, it looks that way, Barry. Eventually, there's a cycle to that. There always is. When Steve Spurrier had it going, people wondered if anybody'd ever catch Florida, and then Urban Meyer had it going. And if they don't win, Florida's going to put the resources into it. Tennessee's going to put the resources into it. South Carolina's going to put the resources into it. Georgia's a great job. It's in a great location. It's got a big metropolitan area right there at the doorstep. Plus, it's got a state that produces a lot of football players. Plus, he's got a good recruiting staff. So it's not surprising that they're able to do that. It's certainly commendable, not taking anything away from it. But if you're at South Carolina, if you're at Florida, if you're at Tennessee, you got to figure out what you're going to do about that. Now I don't know. Vandy and Kentucky have never made it to the SEC championship game, and I don't know if we'll ever see them make it. Once the gap gets that wide, and you have to get ahead of 4 or 5 teams, I just don't see how you can do it.
Yeah, I would. We're looking at Florida, and they're struggling a little bit right now in recruiting. Dan and I talked about this in the first segment, that when Dan Mullen was at Mississippi State, you kind of recruit a different kind of – you got to go find a guy that's talented, but maybe he's got a little bit of baggage. He's got a problem, so Alabama passes on that guy. You go to Florida, and, you got to get the same guys that Alabama and Georgia's are getting. What kind of recruiter do you think Dan Mullen is, Cecil?
I think Dan's probably okay. A lot of that comes down to your staff too. Who do you hire? How well do they recruit? People say Nick Saban's a great recruiter, which he is. Kirby Smart's a great recruiter, which he is. Jeremy Pruitt. But it's not always just about the head coach. Florida has so many players still. If you start talking about Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, and then down into Miami and up into the Panhandle, just in that state. Plus, they can go out of state and get players. So, but you're right. It's a totally different situation than it was for him at Mississippi State, where you try and find guys and so forth. You might if there's a kid within 50, 60 miles of Starkville in Mississippi, you might try and make a run. But even if you're coming over to Alabama, you're not going to get the best player. Now, you may find a good player, but you're not just going to come in and beat Alabama and Auburn for the top guys in state. And that's what, to the state line, it's 40 minutes, 45 minutes. But that's kind of closed off to you. In Florida, you've got plenty of players, more players than the entire state of Mississippi. You've got that many players within a 2-3 hour drive of you.
Yep.
I think when I was trying to sign coaches and I had coaches leave, Greg Polinsky and Kevin Gray were really good recruiters for me, and I had good recruiters, and I had some that I thought were going to be good and weren't. With Nick Saban, he either one or two things happens. He either knows a lot of people, or he is able to find out from people. I don't know the gentleman from Penn State that came in, Gaddis, I guess his name is. I hear somebody say has ability to be a future head coach. He has the ability to not only recruit good coaches who recruit well and coach well, but he knows who he's getting. And even though they had a good recruiting year of the coaches that left, this new staff has come in, and the atmosphere there, which I talk about all the time, is a lot like the atmosphere when Coach Bryant was there. You better do what you're supposed to do. You got somebody to answer to. Is that not right?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. One thing about finding coaches that recruit, the first way you do that is you recruit against them. You're out there on the road with them. You see how they work. You see that they're able to get kids or almost get kids that they shouldn't be getting, or that surprises you, or that you say, man, he really had to work hard. He really had to build a relationship. So you know it firsthand. And then you also know it secondhand, just looking at, he look at their roster, even if you didn't recruit that guy. So this is going to be interesting. Their staff has gotten significantly younger over the past 2 years. Whether that creates an extra burden for Coach Saban, I don't know. In some ways, you like that. You like that energy. I think toward the end of his career, even I think Coach Bryant would have told you that his staff got a little bit older, and they're out there recruiting against some younger guys, and some guys that probably a little more energy. That's not at every position, and Alabama continued to recruit well, but it wasn't the same as it was when he first got there, for sure. And so I think Nick, I think he likes the energy of having some younger guys around. Now, he's got a lot of coaches that hadn't been. This will be their first SEC game coming up, or their first game in a new role, and you want to see how the chemistry goes. But I think, I think that he likes having some younger guys around him, and he's confident enough in himself that he doesn't, necessarily have to surround himself with half a dozen guys who have been head coaches. Not that he doesn't have that too, with what they're able to assemble as far as the staff and what they're able to pay these days.
Cecil, any timetable on when we're going to get an announcement on what's going to happen with the basketball arena? I think everybody feels like they're going to redo the current one that they're in, not build a new one. But any feel on when there may be an announcement what's going to happen with that?
I'd think before football season, or before the first game, Barry, which would put it sometime in August. But now, a lot of moving parts to that. A lot of people have to sign off on that. But I think they'd like to not have that announcement get lost in football season. Once the games have started, I think they'd like to do it before the first game.
Yeah, that.
No, I don't have anything else. Basketball non-conference schedule is announced, and Barry and I will talk about it a little bit. So I appreciate it, Thanks, Cease. I appreciate it.
Okay, good to talk to you.